Welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to break down exactly how to manage your money like the top 1%. And honestly, we're going to start with a pretty harsh reality we uncovered about how the ultra-wealthy actually get rich. Because spoiler alert, it is definitely not by doing what most of us were taught in school.
Okay, let's just dive right into this wild statistic straight out of the gate. Absolutely 0% of the world's ultra-wealthy are pure salaried employees. Zero. Notice that massive 75% slice? Those are entrepreneurs. Then you've got 15% for investors, while the tiny remainder is made up of inheritors or, top-tier artists and professional athletes. But the underlying secret connecting almost all of these people? They own things. They're entrepreneurs who own businesses, they're investors who own assets, and they're artists who own rare, highly leveraged skills.
So, the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that if you don't own assets, your paycheck is basically just a visitor. It passes right through your hands to pay for basic survival: food, shelter, utilities. The source material points out something really sobering. This essentially makes you a modern-day slave to your bills. Think about it. We wake up, we work almost every day, we get paid, and poof. That money instantly vanishes just to keep a roof over our heads so we can wake up and do it all over again. It's the illusion of freedom. The harsh truth is, if you don't own something, you are what is owned.
But we're going to escape this trap using a highly actionable mathematical framework called the 25-15-50-10 rule. It allocates every penny of your income into 4 steps: 25% to invest for growth, 15% for financial stability, 50% to cap your essentials, and 10% to reward yourself guilt-free.
Let's move right into our first pillar, 25% to invest for growth.
Now, for this first pillar, we are not talking about buying a self-improvement book here. We are talking strictly about buying things that put cash back into your pocket while you sleep. The goal is that, eventually, these assets make more money than your actual day job. And you've got to see the staggering power of starting early. Just look at Billy and Phil. Billy invested way less money each month than Phil, just $200 compared to Phil's $300. But because Billy started at age 20 and just let the historic 10% average return of the stock market do its thing, compound interest ballooned his wealth to over $1.26 million by age 60. Phil, he waited until he was 30 to start, and he only ended up with about $678,000. So Billy literally put in $12,000 less out of his own pocket, but walked away with nearly $600,000 more. Time is, without a doubt, your greatest asset.
And the brilliant part about all of this, you don't need to be some risky Wall Street stock picker trying to guess the next big tech boom to get these results. Seriously, you just need to set up a tax-advantaged account, like a Roth IRA or a Stocks and Shares ISA, and automate what's called a 3-fund portfolio. It's super simple. It contains a broad U.S. stock index, an international stock index for global exposure, and a stabilizing bond fund. That's it. You set it up to pull from your checking account automatically on payday, and you just let it quietly grow in the background.
Because as this perfectly captures, consistency beats complexity every single time. Once your investments are running on autopilot, you've got to stop obsessing over daily stock charts. Your only job at that point is to go out and learn high-income skills. Think coding, copywriting, or sales. You do that so you can aggressively increase the amount of cash you're feeding into this wealth-building machine. Ultimately, your own skills are the absolute highest return on investment you will ever make.
All right, moving on to Pillar 2, dedicating 15% to build financial stability.
To really understand why this matters, the source shares a crazy personal story. Imagine being 18, getting a loan to buy a car, and then 3 months later, boom, the engine completely blows up. With zero savings in the bank, he was forced to take on even more high-interest debt just to fix the car so he wouldn't get fired from his job. That one single event completely shattered his finances and set him back a full year. So, to make yourself bulletproof against those random life emergencies, you have to direct 15% of your income into a stability fund until you hit this exact magic number, 5. That is, 5 full months of your baseline essential living expenses. Not your going out budget, just the absolute bare minimum you need to survive if your income suddenly dropped to 0 tomorrow.
Now, you can actually stack this cash pretty quickly using direct debit paycheck sweeps or even those roundup apps that automatically stash your spare change. But, and this is crucial, this cash has to follow 3 very strict rules. 1, it must be accessible within 24 hours because when an emergency hits, you need speed. 2, it has to carry absolutely zero market risk, so no stocks and definitely no crypto. And 3, it must always earn interest in a high-yield savings account so that inflation isn't just quietly eating away its value while it sits there.
Let's hit Pillar 3, capping your essentials at 50% to stop lifestyle creep.
Get this, it is genuinely shocking, but over 60% of Americans making over six figures are living paycheck to paycheck, completely broke. Why? Because the exact moment they earn a little more, they lease a pricier car or upgrade to a flashier apartment. You have to actively redefine what an essential actually is. Groceries, basic utilities, a roof over your head, those count. Daily takeout, gym memberships you never use, and brand new cars, those absolutely do not. You create real wealth by shrinking your housing and transport costs, rather than trying to look rich to impress people you don't even know. The guy in the plain t-shirt with $1,000 quietly compounding in investments is infinitely wealthier than the guy in the designer shirt who's terrified of missing a single paycheck.
And look, our willpower completely evaporates when we're tired or stressed. It happens to all of us. That's why you have to build in automatic psychological speed bumps like the 7-day rule for any impulse buys. If you see something you want, just force yourself to pause for 7 full days. Most of the time, you'll realize you didn't actually need it at all, and that little spike of marketing-induced dopamine will have completely worn off.
Let's just do the quick math on brand versus value here. Say you buy a $200 pair of designer trainers, but you only wear them twice to keep them pristine. That is costing you $100 per wear. But if you buy a solid, high-quality $60 pair of boots and wear them 100 times, that's just 60 cents a wear. Wealthy people understand this equation inside and out. They know that paying for quality and daily utility is infinitely smarter than just throwing money away on a flashy label.
And finally, we've reached our fourth pillar, using the last 10% of your income to reward yourself, completely guilt-free.
This step is non-negotiable, guys, because saving money without any joy just feels like a prison sentence, and it inevitably leads to massive financial burnout. Actually, 92% of people admit to completely blowing their budget after an intense savings sprint. Think of this 10% as your strategic cheat meal. It keeps the whole financial diet sustainable over the long haul. To make it work, you set up an automated transfer into a completely separate account. Let's call it a joy jar. When payday hits, 10% goes straight in. You can spend it on whatever you love without an ounce of guilt. But here's the catch. When that account hits zero, the fund simply stops until next month. No cheating, and definitely no dipping into your stability or growth funds.
The author of our source data actually learned this lesson the absolute hardest way possible. He got so obsessed with his businesses and investments that he completely stopped taking vacations. And the result? He gave himself a painful case of stress-induced shingles, literally worked himself sick. It was a massive wake-up call that proved you have to use this 10% to invest back into your health, your relationships, and your life experiences. Prioritize things like vacations to reset your nervous system, hobbies to keep your passions alive, nights out to stay connected with friends, and thoughtful gifts to build up your relationships.
So as we wrap up this explainer and you get ready to implement this mathematical escape plan, take a really hard look at your bank statements this week and ask yourself this one question. Are you actually building wealth, or are you just trying to look rich? Stop letting your hard-earned paycheck flow right through your hands and into the pockets of corporations. Take control of your percentages, buy some assets, cap your lifestyle, and start building your real freedom today.